Hey, what's up, everybody? Once again, it's your boy, Drakey, bringing you another podcast. For real. Because everyone, all these people have been asking, when's the next podcast coming up? When are you going to do another podcast? And I haven't even been able to concentrate on music because of the heavy demand for a new podcast, which doesn't explain the lack of views of the other podcasts, but I digress. And this is the fourth edition of my latest podcast entitled Am I Worthy? Now, when I say am I worthy, I immediately in my mind revert back to Wayne's World with we're not worthy, which is true. You're not, because I'm not. We're not. For only He is worthy. He is worthy of it all. And I am talking about Jesus Christ. He is worthy of it all. Whatever would be left over is less. So there we go. I am worthless. And it's funny because nowadays slang has people quick to call someone who they consider old, outdated, or ugly as dusty when we were just all just dust until the Lord breathed life into Adam. And now, since the Easter has just passed, it makes me begin to wonder, am I worthy? I am not. And I know we all fall short of the grace of God. And I feel like I am still falling. Maybe falling slower with my acceptance of God's will and His purpose, but I feel like I'm still falling and falling harder at times. And the evil one knows how to impose internal guilt, which makes you feel you really have to rely on the word and prayer, which you should be doing anyway. Because I really look forward to going to church every Sunday. I really do. I really do. And I know you're going to say, that's just because Soul Cry Church is awesome. Yeah, but that's besides the point. And no matter how late I am, which I'll be, I mean, unless I stay up 24 hours and not go to sleep after work, starts to make you wonder if people are starting to doubt your commitment. Because you don't have no idea how amped up I am on Saturday night, knowing the next day is Sunday, and I get to go to Soul Cry Church. But then on Sunday in church, I often start feeling like I'm an imposter in there. I mean, anyone ever feel like the pastor is talking about them when it's not overwhelmingly positive? Like if you have a pastor that's mentioning people's commitment, and in your head you're like, he's talking about me. What do I do now? I know he told me. Why am I feeling guilty in church? You feel like stuff like that. Because my pastor will often mention to be wary of people who speak cleverly with fancy words because they could be deceptive. And I'm like, I know he talking about me. Because I think about everything before I say it. You know, uh, I want to be clever. I'm a comedian. I got punchlines. Of course, I'm thinking I want to be clever. I'm pretty sure he must be talking about me. I'm different. I always feel like I stand out in the church anyway because I move differently. So this wasn't helping me. But luckily, I found some words of encouragement. There used to be a Christian missionary named Elizabeth Elliot who said, "Don't dig up with doubt what you planted in faith." And then in the scriptures, Psalm 94:19. When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy. So this was just a mild formulation of anxiety that, no Zoloft or Prozac required. This was just the earthly realm's controller's attempt at distraction. And what is distraction? Distraction is anything that intentionally or covertly draws your attention away from the Lord. And with me, I'm always even keeled. I try not to let anything get to me. I don't get too high or too low. I'm what they now say is mid. My attitude is just mid. Even my demeanor. Every time something bad happens, put me down. I'm like, okay. I guess that's just how it's supposed to be. That's just my demeanor. I'm just mid. Now, I may not get loud and shout and become overcome with the spirit in church as I see others do, yelling and falling on their knees. With my knee, I would be able to get back up. But that doesn't mean that I do not look forward to His mercy and His grace and His Holy Spirit. Because I know the Holy Spirit exists. I know the Holy Spirit exists. The Holy Spirit exists. I'm just that non-emotional being. My mood is always the same. You know, I never in life been that outwardly emotional type. I'm not emotional. Excuse me. No, but seriously. I was raised to be a man, You're a man, gotta be strong, men don't cry. But now they're saying it's okay to cry for men. It's universally accepted. So men, do not be afraid to cry. If you feel the need to cry, then cry. But there is a time limit now. If you crying for around 40 minutes, an elder person will come up to you and be like, hey, what the heck, dude? What, were you shot? Come on now. You need to chill out. I'm only kidding, kind of. But I've never been an emotional like that. Never been, that's not me, I don't wear my emotions on my sleeve. As a matter of fact, I don't have sleeves. The only way you could say I show emotion is if you remove the E in the word, because I'm moving. I can say that for sure. But I've never been that type. As much as back in the day, I like attending rap concerts and such, I would hate when the rappers did crowd participation. To this day, I still hate that. Every rapper, like, somebody say ho. No. Yo, I was enjoying this whole show until just now. You know, let's get loud. Somebody make some noise. Like, why? I ain't trying to hurt my voice. I paid you to perform. Why I gotta help you out? I gotta work too. Am I gonna get some of my money back since I'm helping out your show? Then no. You know, somebody, anybody, help me, scream. Shut up. Am I gonna get on stage with you then? Do I get a shirt? Then nah, I ain't doing that. I hated that. But I do believe that anyone who can get loud like that and emotional and for their favorite concerts should be able to match that same and have that same energy in church. But you don't understand. When I start intensifying my output and pushing it to the limit and putting it all out there with the most effort that I can muster, with no fear or intrepidation, and speak out and letting it all hang out and giving all that I got to give more than I ever believed possible, I would reach the level of Hank Hill from King of the Hill. For real. I think that's my exuberance level on steroids. Hank Hill from King of the Hill. Because I can tell you about Jesus and propane accessories, I'll tell you what. That's me. So what ends up happening is I end up feeling like I'm not saved as much as everyone else is around me. Because I'm not dancing in the aisles and falling on my knees. Yeah, I get it, but I believe it. I'm just mid. I think it may be because I've never spoken in tongues yet. I mean, I don't know if I did. How would I know? Unless someone comes up to me afterward, after I was speaking, and they came up to me after I was speaking about the Lord and His love and the Holy Spirit, and if people came up to me saying that I was speaking another language they never heard before, I'd believe it. No one ever said, "Hey, yo, Drake, man, I didn't know you could speak Minion." For real, it sounded like you were speaking that Minion language from Despicable Me. I don't know what you were saying. They'd be like, "Oh, then maybe I was speaking in tongues." Because I always felt you have to be able and you have to be in tune with the Holy Spirit in order to do so. And on TV, I sometimes I question some things. Sometimes it seems like people can just whip it out at random whenever they want. And people say, "Oh yes, sir, I'm gonna speak in tongues now. You ready? Mama say, Mama sa, Mama gusa," and there you go. So I don't think it'd be turned on and off like it may appear. You see other people do it. And I feel like if it happens, it would happen subconsciously without you realizing it. Like if out of nowhere, if I start speaking about His grace and mercy, and all of a sudden you start hearing Uchi Wally Wally, Woo Ha, Wop Baba Loo Bop, Wop Bam Boom, Tutti Frutti. Nah, no Tutti Frutti. Sorry, Rudy. And then I could see people come up to me and say, "You were speaking in tongues," or they would say, "I didn't know you could speak Pootie Tang." Hey, sign your pity on a runny con. Shout out Tay. For those who remember Chris Rock's movie Pootie Tang. Now, who knows if I ever spoke in tongues without my knowing. Who knows if I ever spoke in tongues unconsciously? Like in Acts 2:17, it says, your sons and daughters will prophesy, your young men will see visions, and your old men will see dreams. Now, I may daydream and see things because I'm not that old yet, But I say that because, like, I wonder if I ever did that when I was young. Yeah, because growing up, I was a big kid growing up. And for all that I know, I could have been prophesying in my sleep. And do you know the feeling you get to discover that you may have been speaking in tongues in your sleep? But of course, mothers are quick to dismiss that and panic and want to get a second opinion, like a medical opinion. So it becomes that age-old battle of purpose versus determination, or really faith versus science. But that could have been my purpose. But adults only acknowledge predetermined results. So, what I thought was my purpose of me speaking in tongues in my sleep, the doctors determined I was speaking in sleep apnea, which is why I don't trust doctors. I still have the CPAP machine, the mask and the CPAP mask and the breathing machine in my home, and I didn't prophesy after that. Of course, it would sound weird prophesying wearing that sleep apnea device. You end up sounding like Darth Vader. Luke. Luke 14:34. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? Now, this wording may sound salty on earth, but that's not my aim in life. But back to what I was saying earlier. Like I was saying, I was a big kid growing up. And at one point, I was 350 pounds. And sometimes, people can say things unintentionally that sound reasonable in their head before it leaves their person. And once it hits the atmosphere, it becomes embarrassing. So, I'm at a Tuesday night church service at Soul Cry. And I don't know how the topic came up, but I ended up explaining that I had lost 150 pounds and used to be 350 pounds. And a young guy at church named Elijah says, you were 350 pounds? Wow! How did that happen? Okay, really? How am I expected to answer that now? The old conventional way, something to do with eating. Like, what was I supposed to say? Like I needed a special reason. I felt compelled to tell him something. That I told him I was allergic to sunflower seeds. I did, yeah. You could ask him. I told him that, Hard to build on that. And when you fry chicken in sunflower oil, boom, mind blown, right? I didn't know what to say. But he didn't know what he said when he said it, He's actually a young rapper named COG Elijah, which is Child of God, with the single Jesus Reigns. So check it out, COG Elijah with the single Jesus Reigns on Spotify. But yeah, growing up was really tough. Like I said, I was a big kid growing up, and I just have these memories that I'll just always have. Like, I remember as a kid, going horseback riding and ended up breaking the horse's back. Yeah, it's just sad, because it traumatized me. Because they had to immediately get me off the horse so they could put the horse down right then and there in front of me. And of course, how they described it was to put him out of service, to make it sound not as scary. But that did not lessen the guilt that I felt, because I was traumatized. But not as much as the 30 other kids that was also on the carousel. And growing up was big. It was hard in New York, getting rejected constantly by women. You ever get rejected by blind women? That just felt embarrassing, I'm sorry, Drake. I just can't see us being together. That's just because you can't see. I can see it. So it didn't work out. And when you're single and depressed, your mother will always say something that uplifts your spirits. Like, don't worry, Drakey, because the right woman is out there, so you need to be careful. And don't you be going out there breaking all these women's hearts. And, You feel happy and self-assured and go outside and make the mistake of smiling because that's when the neighborhood kids see you. And the neighborhood kids got jokes. Like, yo, check this out. Yo, what up, fat boy? Why you smiling so much? What you thinking about? Cookies? You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. Well, you can make fun of my appearance all you want, but my mother said to be careful because I could end up breaking many women's hearts. Really? Now that I got this, break a woman's heart, you say? Well, why would a woman let you sit on her chest? You know what I'm saying? You would end up breaking her heart, neck, back, and spleen then. Oh, yeah, you guys are just jealous. Jealous? Yeah, we too wish we had high blood pressure. You know what I'm saying? Shut up. You walk off all mad and upset. And adults are no help. The adults are just as bad as the kids. Because they seem to be mad at you. What you getting mad about? Those are just kids being kids. They only 9 and 10 years old anyway. Why are you crying? You're a teenager. Blah, blah, blah. I hate New York. Now, I know John 7:24 says, stop judging by mere appearances, but instead judge correctly. So, let's make sure we're accurate. Because New York is a trip. A trip where? Who knows? But if you're looking for it, I bet you can find it in New York. New York was woke before the term came out, New York was woke when people were still sleeping. And in New York, people know that what they say to you is offensive, but they don't care because it's their truth and prerogative. Like, their truth? Their truth? Like, is there an opposing truth compared to theirs? These people, they believe in alternate truths. Like, do you also own a MAGA hat? But they say freedom of speech because they're woke. Woke up on the wrong side of the bed, who knows? But even the ads in New York are woke. Like, I remember the old Trident ads that used to be on the train cars, like in the mid-2000s. Anyone remember that? But first off, I hate riding the trains. And they have the nerve to keep wanting to raise the fare for train improvement. Improvement? What have you improved? What are you trying to maintain worse? Because it's steadily getting worse, The highlight of riding the trains used to be the train cards, the ads that they had. Like the Trident gum ones were hilarious. They were a trip. They were my favorite. Anyone remember back in the day they had the Trident one that said, cavities send us hate mail. But the funniest one I saw was, we're security guards for your mouth office. Man, how bad is your breath if it requires a security clearance? I smell terrorism. You know your breath is bad if you can smell it. Because you can only smell your breath through your nose if your mouth is closed. So you know it's bad if you can smell your breath through your face. Probably why people are always frowning, to not draw attention to the immediate atmosphere. And if you can smell your breath through your face, you need to stay inside with one of those white contamination outfits from that Outbreak movie. And those people, they're the same ones that always want to get in your face to tell you something. Like, let me tell you something, it's a secret. Nah, dude, the secret's out. Everyone knows. They can tell from over there. Your breath is like sending smoke signals. You don't even need fire. As a matter of fact, you can send smoke signals in the rain with your breath. So just breathe downwind. Oh, so what you trying to say? What's like that? You trying to say that my breath is tart? Since when do we substitute the word rancid for tart? As a matter of fact, get away from me, because people keep coming up to me asking to buy that new potent weed you must be selling. They never smelled anything like that. And of course, people always got something smart to say, hey, weed is legal now. Yeah, but your exhales ain't. But I was like let me not get emotional. Let me stay mid, because that's all I need for him to get mad and start huffing and puffing, because that would mean he's breathing harder. New Yorkers are a trip like that, especially with their attitudes. How many times you hear people say, I'm a boss? I'm getting tired of hearing people say that. I'm a boss. Really? What business you own? You have employees? You pay property taxes on your business? And they get slick. I got 2 businesses. None your and mine yours. So I got to put up with these imaginary bosses. They're like theatrical CEOs. And you say, why do you say theatrical? Because they're so dramatic. I'm waiting for a song and dance number now. Because there's no business like no business. Because your business has nothing to show. Oh, yeah? Well, I'm a registered LLC. What's that stand for? The Liars Lament Club? And why is it everyone that I see that said they're a boss coincidentally always hops the bus to avoid paying the fare? What? Are your truckers on strike? Is your company in foreclosure? Did you file Chapter 11? And knowing you, Chapter 11 is probably a subdivision of Section 8. But people hopping the bus and the train is one of my pet peeves. Nothing worse than standing on line to pay and board the bus, and the majority of the people are sneaking into the back of the bus anyway, taking up all the seats. I wouldn't mind if they waited for the paying customers to sit down first, but now I got to sit there and watch two crimes happening, stealing a fare and a seat. And it'd be the people you don't expect, I see the elderly people sneaking on the back of the bus with their walkers, and then have the audacity to ask you to help them out. Like trying to make you compliant with breaking the law. Hey, Poppy, a little help, please? I hate when they do that on the train. Hey, my man, can you open the door so I can get on with my bike? Like, can't you ride to your destination? Were you taking the train to the bike repair shop? Because that's all I need is for both of us to get arrested. How's that gonna look, Like, when he's taking mug shots, I'm going to be sitting with the bike. And come back, it's your turn. And he was like, how you going to ask me to risk going to jail when you see me wearing one of my Christian t-shirts? And then they get slick. Doesn't the Bible say go out 2 by 2? I'm like, what? I would be heated, because I'm from the Bronx, where the motto is, if you have to go out, make sure you have a 2 by 4. But I'm saved. Don't let it get to me. But sometimes the elderly will have an attitude sneaking on the bus with me because they're looking at me to expecting me to give up my seat. I would have, if they paid to get on the bus. But it's like that old saying, two wrongs don't make a right turn. Two wrongs don't make a right. But then they come out with their own saying, like, young man, God does not like ugly. You know what else the Lord doesn't like? Stealing. They mentioned it in the Bible. It's taught at the beginning. And it's even mothers with their baby carriages sneaking on the back of the bus with their strollers. To me, that's foul, man. That's foul. Baby can't even walk yet. You done made his junior an accessory. He can't even speak yet, and yet he has to plead the fifth in court. That's messed up, man. Little shorty got a criminal record before he ever got a bike. It ain't right. I'm just saying. But right now, I'm going to take a pause right here and honor some financial commitments, and we'll be back after a word from this episode's new sponsor.
Are you one of those nice guys that always finish last?
Do you feel like if you had the same chances as your friends, that you would have done even better than them, even if you was in the same constant pressure situation?
If motivations were equal, do you think you could rock out like a rock star?
Could your life really change for the better with some added stress and drama? Then this is for you!
Imaginary Baby Mamas!
Here, at Imaginary Baby Mamas or the IBM Group, we specialize in giving you that same energy baby mamas are known for. You get to experience the baby mama experience without having to contribute for child support because they're imaginary. With Imaginary Baby Mamas, we provide that key, negative, downright insulting motivation that was needed to push baby daddies to succeed, just to shut their baby mamas up. Finally, geez, we even use that well-known tried and tested formula, known as negative attitude given to guarantee improved necessities, or necking, the traditional way of how things got done. But don't just take the countless baby daddy's word for it. Experience the journey for yourselves.
Imaginary baby mama.
And don't you be bringing your scallywag skanks from work around my child either. I don't care if he is imaginary. I'm serious, Apple. I ain't gonna tell you again. 'Cause I'll find out, I always do. Don't worry how I'll find out. Just know that I will, so don't do it. Boy, don't play with me. You already know.
Look, I need you to take your imaginary child this weekend. I know it's not your weekend to take him, but you have to take him this weekend because I'm going out of town. What do you mean you can't? All the things I've done for you and all the things I looked past and didn't report to the judge or your parole officer, and you're gonna try to prevent me from seeing Usher after you know how much money I spent to get my hair and my nails did? Bruh, you need to get your priorities straight and be a father to your imaginary child. Shoot.
Look, I need some money. Because I take care of our imaginary kid, that's why. Well, why don't you get yourself a second job? And be a role model for our imaginary child to believe in. Stop being selfish.
Bronx Quisha. Look.
Oh, no, he didn't. Who said you could take our daughter to get her hair done? I don't care if she is imaginary. Look how they messed up her hair. What are you talking about? Everybody can see it. I can see it. I don't care if she is your daughter too. You have to get my permission on anything concerning our child. What? Because I don't need to get your permission, that's why. Look, yes, braids do make your hair grow out more. But her hair is too short and weak for cornrows. They don't even look like cornrows. It just looks like she has big stitches. They're so tight, she can't even close her eyes. People gonna think she has a thyroid condition. Her eyes are not supposed to be that big and bulging like that. How is she gonna sleep at night? She looks like a goldfish with struggle braids. I'll tell you what you're gonna do. You're gonna give me some money so I can go fix it so we can get both of our hair on point. But stop overanalyzing what I just said and stop being cheap and give us the money. This is what your daughter wants!
Gosh darn it. Why do I always have to hunt you down, Hunter? Look, I need some money. What do you mean you don't have it? A real man would find a way to support his imaginary child. It is your responsibility. And stop trying to say it's not yours. After all this time, you could have already taken an imaginary paternity test, so stop it. Step up and be a man for once. Sheesh.
So get the feel of the true imaginary baby mama sorority. And now, sing the mantra mamas.
Mama say, mama saw, mama saw.
So, we're back. Once again, here I am. And I'd like to thank the sponsor for this episode, the IBM Group. Thank you. So good to have a sponsor finally. And the thing is now, what do we talk about now? I seen videos not too long ago, and I kind of always wanted to address it, so I think I might as well do it now. In the Bible, Isaiah 1:19-20 says, "If you are willing and obedient, you will eat the good things of the land. But if you resist and rebel, you will be devoured by the sword, for the Lord has spoken." And Romans 8:7. "The mind governed by the flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law, nor can it do so." And I mention this because I started seeing a lot of videos of people talking about shooting at ops. And they're ops this and ops that. But these gangster videos about shooting at ops. And I'm thinking, what the heck is ops? I'm thinking optical. Like they got some kind of beef against lens crafters. Maybe they got the bill. Like, we got to shoot at these ops. It took me a long time to figure out what ops was. They're like ops, shooting at ops. Ops means opposition. So when they say they against ops, that means they're against their opposition, ops. So apparently these people are definitely not down with OPP, So opposition, huh? I think you may be opposed to what the Lord wants. And to brag about shooting at ops and mocking people who end up becoming unalive during this. But they talk about escaping similar ambushes and making it out alive, that they must have an angel on their side. Really? Because everyone is always quick to quote Romans 12:19, "Vengeance is mine." But that's the only part they seem to know. Because that is followed up with, I will repay, saith the Lord. Think about that quote. I like sometimes, if they added the word only, it'd be, it'd come over even harder. Because really, the quote is like, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord only. The Lord repays. Then why are you attempting to fill his shoes? How are you attempting to do his work for him? How is ruining or deleting what or who the Lord created granting you leniency in his favor? Because people have this thing. There's certain things that stay on people's minds. Like I hear so many people quoting the line, is there heaven for a G? No. Unless you're a former G, a G that's repented maybe. Because if G is short for gangster and a gangster is a rebel, does the Bible not speak out against rebellion? I kind of just mentioned it. I'll give you some more. 1 Samuel 15:23. For rebellion is like the sin of divination, and arrogance like the evil of idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king, as in King Saul. And also, Romans 13:2. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. And those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. And also Romans 13:5. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but also as a matter of conscience. Now, due to my conscience, I don't want to contradict myself, because I do believe that authorities also should operate with a sense of respect and decency, and not to embarrass people. And of course, I say this knowing full well that those police body cam videos on YouTube are hilarious. Oh man, I know I shouldn't be laughing, but come on. Some of the things that people say and try, what? And the police just take it. Usually because the person about to be arrested is making it known that they're also filming this with their cell phone. Now, I wish I could interview a police officer and ask them about this. Because the police wish they could just say what they really want. You can't tell me that when a person says to a police officer, you can't do that, that the cops just want to say back, yes, I can. No, you can't. I just did it. You can't do that. I just did. It's hilarious. And the funniest things I always hear is, the police only arrested me because I'm black. Really? You mean Captain Jamal and Officer Tyrone did? And there's always like, call my lawyer. I'm not being arrested until I call my lawyer. Well, we got phones at the police station. You could call them after booking. No, call my lawyer now. You don't know who I am. They always have a story. My relative is some sort of police captain in another jurisdiction, and I'm friends with the mayor, such and such, and blah, 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 so call my lawyer. Don't you just wish that the police officer, all right, and call their bluffer? Who's your lawyer? I'll call him now. Who am I calling? Who am I to call? PD. PD? I don't know what that is, but I doubt it's who I think it is, because I think he needs a lawyer too. Who do you mean PD? I want a public defender. Here, okay, ma'am. You have the right to remain silent. And they never use that right. When they tell them, you have the right to remain silent, but you choose to embarrass yourself. Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. Oh, no, I don't. I want to speak to the police captain now. You will not arrest me until I speak to the captain. Call him here now. And then the captain has to show up to speak to them and just say, well, just arrest her. What? Oh, no, you don't. I want to speak to the governor. He knows who I am. Tell him you're holding me against my will because he knows who my parents are. And then the governor calls and says, I hope your jail stay is brief. Your jail stay is brief. Then they really get irate. This is ridiculous. I want to speak to the president of the United States right now. Gosh darn it. He knows me, golly gee. I said, get the president on the phone right now, darn it. Don't make me get angry. You won't like me when I'm angry because I can become really Henri. What? 4 years ago, where were you January 6th? And then they get at it. No, I'm going home. I just thought about it. I didn't give you the right to arrest me. I said, no, I'm not getting arrested. I did not give you the right to arrest me. Are we allowed to say that? I don't think so. Now, coincidentally, the only people I see try this are whom are now referred to as Karens. People who believe that they're entitled to preferential treatment compared to the rest of the world of common folk. And these women have always been white. It's just a coincidence, but they just seem to be always on the videos, always these white women that believe that they're entitled. And it's kind of messed up for people named Karen, because I have a sister named Karen. And now she can't react forcibly against personal slights against her because it would give the creators of the term Karen the satisfaction of being right. So now it's just, you really got to think about it. And they even have like Karens, they have the male versions, Darrens, they exist. Because they're the only people I see bold enough to try that. If you see black people say, you're not allowed to arrest me, I didn't say you could, here come the SWAT van and police dogs. But I've seen these Karens say this on multiple occasions. You can't arrest me, I have kids. What? Has that ever worked? Because I've seen so many women saying that as they're about to be handcuffed. They must feel that's a valid excuse to excuse their indiscretion. You can't arrest me, I'm a mother. Like that's going to change things. What's the response going to be? I said, you can't arrest me, I'm a mother. And the cops are like, what? Oh, no, that's right, I have a child. Well, how old is the child, ma'am? He's 3. Dagnabbit. What is it, Captain? She has a 3-year-old child, which means we have to let her go. And I'm pregnant. What? What happened now, Captain? Well, if the suspect has a child and is pregnant, not only we have to let her go, we have to drive her home too, because she's a mother. That's right, honey child. And I have cramps. What the jeez Louise? What now, Captain? Well, if the suspect is a pregnant mother and has cramps, now before we drive her home, we have to buy ice cream. Boy, yes, she really is one tough mother. Shut your mouth. I'm just talking about entitled Karens. Well, then I could dig it. Now, it is hilarious when women get arrested on these body cams because apparently women have trouble breathing and get lightheaded when they're handcuffed behind their backs. And they start having heart palpitations and can't breathe and have to go to the hospital because they're about to pass out. They complain about the handcuffs being too tight and they can't breathe. Like, really? So you could suffocate with the handcuffs and then they pass out being handcuffed behind their backs, And they got a story. Officer, I can't be handcuffed behind my back. I have a medical excuse. It's what got me discharged out of the Army. Yeah. I became unconscious standing at ease. And this is before you even go to jail. People seem to have no fear about being arrested. Like they'll just spend 8 hours in jail overnight and see a judge and be released. Well, hopefully this scared straight moment right here will stop this youthful rebellion in the world. Because obviously, these people must have no fear of central booking and processing. Central booking and processing is scary because it's not just pictures and fingerprinting. No. Now, I don't know if these police officers have too much time on their hands that do that or have some kind of wicked, kinky fantasy or fetish or something. But during central booking, after the picture taking and fingerprinting, they search you and they do something that they call a cavity search. Now, listen, I have been to many a dentist, and they never, and I mean never, ever. I mean, couldn't you just get the police officer to call your dentist for x-rays? Quick question. Here's a quick math question. Might be on the SATs. What's the shortest distance between 2 points? A straight line. Cavities are in your mouth. Well, someone needs to explain this to Officer Magellan here trying to take the scenic route. No dentist has ever said to you, like, your teeth are really bad. You have 30 cavities and abscess and need root canals and extractions. Take off your belt. Oh, this fear will guarantee kids brush their teeth after every meal. But figure police officers are like your typical city employees, must be trying to milk the clock. Look, overtime ain't worth this. Do these dental school dropouts even know what cavities are? If you are this far-sighted, you need to find a new line of work. Getting cavity searches by Mr. Magoo here. And this is before you even reach the jail cell. So I'm trying to tell you, chill. I'm trying to prevent anyone from having to go there. You need to know that you are worth more because of him above. You are worthy of more. I started this podcast off talking about, am I worthy? I mean, I've been through a lot and somehow made it through. And I constantly struggle with that. And as much as I struggle, I hear stories from my church from people who've had it worse than me. And I asked his permission for this. There's a guy in my church, Kyle Peacock from my church, who tells a story of having a heart attack while he was in the womb, which altered his mobility to this day. And he was adopted and became bullied by his other adopted family. And with his life, instead of being placed on a pedestal, he's been put on a platform to speak on the Lord's mercy. And you can ask him, how come he is not bitter? Because the joy of the Lord. He is willing to put up with so much just because of the Lord, just for the joy of the Lord. And it's just so many people have the same thing. There are other church member stories, but from people who have like holes in their hearts and damaged ligaments, and through prayers and the grace of God, they've been healed completely. Which makes me start to feel foolish and complain about the struggles that I have. Struggles that seem to be the end of me. My struggles of having supreme bad luck and being unattractive. It's just. Because they say God will not give you more than what you can handle, and I'm still trying to find where that is in the Bible. The closest I came to was Psalm 55:22, which says, cast your fears upon the Lord and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. So now my struggles seem insignificant compared to what others have been through. But I feel like it's a real struggle to me. So now I'm afraid someone's going to, in comparison with me, will say, if they say God won't give you more than you can handle, and that's what you're struggling with, Jesus must think you soft. And I realize it's not a good comeback to say, oh, he doesn't think I'm soft. He thinks I'm cuddly. Now I just appear softer. And don't say sensitive either. I hate that. Women don't like a man with sensitivity. Oh, they do. Back in the day, Ralph Tresvant was trying to sell records. Stop it. Worst case scenario, your new wife would tell you that her ex was just released from a 10-year prison sentence due to violence, and is upset now that his ex is now your wife and married, and he's coming to confront you and take his girlfriend back, and she's panicking, and you say, well, what do you want me to do? You know I'm sensitive. Now she's looking at you side-eyed and confused, and hates all New Edition now. Even Johnny Gill. Johnny Gill wasn't even in that long. She loathes him too. Your sensitivity destroyed music. You somehow become banned from Spotify. And it all rains down on you at once. Well, can you stand the rain? What do you do? Well, luckily, Psalm 55:16 said, as for me, I called to God and the Lord saved me, which is true. With all the life-altering struggles I've been able to escape, which had been a few if you ever heard my testimony, but of course, no, you haven't. It's been online for years, but no one peeps it. Apparently, no one visits YouTube anymore. Right? Anyway, but my every escapism, so to speak, had nothing to do with my own doing. I was just there. And amazingly, I was found worthy. So the question I ask you is, do you know that you are worthy? Do you know that you're worthy? Ephesians 2:10 says, for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. He loves you. When you think you're all alone, it's because you're not seeking him out. They have that saying, Jesus is my co-pilot. If anything, I think I'm his co-pilot. I'm nowhere near being equal. Call me a co-pilot. I'm not a pilot. I'm not even worthy to push the food cart down the aisle. I can't fly a plane, let alone provide the plane. Jesus is the pilot. Because you can make many a mistake, but know that you are not a mistake. As much as life has been hard on me, even though I know I'm not a mistake, I have to keep saying that so I can believe it for me. But when I feel down, I just recall Psalm 139:14. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. The Lord does not make mistakes. Mistakes only happen when we try to alter the story. I hate when people try to be woke and take liberty with words anyway and their pronunciations. Remember back in school, they used to try to separate and combine words. I used to hate in school when they used to say, is it history or his story? Well, actually, if you think about it, it is his story. But they don't play that mispronunciation game, merging and splitting words with other words. You never heard anyone else say, is it his word or his sword? Hey, guess what? They're both sharp, so stop it. So choose your words wisely, and make sure you know your words, what you're actually saying, especially in New York. You got to know things in New York, Know that if people are talking about putting hands on you, don't expect them to be praying on you. If they mention that, I doubt when they spelling pray, I doubt they spelling it with an A, You realize in New York, when someone mentions putting hands on you, those hands quickly curl up and become fists. And all of a sudden, they're like Bruce Lee fans with these fists of fury. I'm not ashamed. I admit I'm an idiot. I know I'm an idiot, Because certain words sound funny to me. It could be misleading. Like the first time I heard like the word hocus pocus, hocus pocus, it's supposed to have something to do with magic. But when I first heard it, hocus pocus, it sounded like Greek criminal charges on a gigolo trying to work in Greece. You just see the ladies, hocus pocus time, huh? It's Magic Marco's time. Me pocus long time. Opas. Which is funny because every time you hear the word Opa, we automatically think Oprah Winfrey. So now you start thinking, Opa, you get a gyro. You get a gyro. Hocus pocus, Opa, gyros. But let me stop before people stop buying gyros. That's all I need is for Greece to be upset with me because other countries don't want to taste their meat. Pause. I just heard it now. Pausey, pause. Just realized how it sounds. Pausey, pause. Let's not overthink that, cerebral pausey, pause. Or like the phrase gravely mistaken. Sounds ominous, Gravely? Like they died due to negligence. Speaking of which, I can confirm I'm an idiot because I used to think the word negligence is what women wore on their honeymoon, He was like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm gonna wear some fancy negligence in Hawaii, So don't judge me. People say I'm just ignorant, And I responded, my eyes were wide open. I ain't ignoring Jack, I wasn't gonna miss nothing. Shoot. So I say, be sure to choose your words wisely. Actually, I think it's better just to know the words that you're speaking in general. So you go with your lady to one of her family functions where they're celebrating and wine toasting and wine tasting. And then since she has her family around and feels comfortable, she starts to berate you in front of them because she's a little tipsy. But then you start to defend yourself and start telling her about herself and how she is. And you confuse the words petulant and flatulent. Woo. Talk about clearing the room. Now I'm the bad guy, apparently. I hate you, Drake, you monster. Me? Your family wasn't holding their nose and running away from me. You want to talk about somebody being petulant. Irony. Irony. Speaking of irony, York's Peppermint Patty candy bar is for an acquired taste, and the Peppermint Patty character on Charlie Brown was widely considered to be... Never mind. Well, I ended the previous podcast with some original poetry from my old stand-up days that I never got to try out. So I had a whole lot of stuff that I never was able to try out. So I figured I might as well try it here and end it out with that. I never fear people reading my thoughts because I don't think in sentences. Shadow puppets hate human beings, especially shadow rabbits. For real. Every shadow bunny is being sick and tired of feeling mocked by our continued use of air quotes. Fee, fi, fo, fum. See? Even the nursery rhymes made fun of his lisps. One for all and all for one, for all we got is us, shouted the schizophrenic. And now for some controversial sophistication. Children leave the room. One little piggy lost in the stock market. One little piggy's gluten intake made him groan. One little piggy trolled internet beef. And one little piggy's dating choices got him disowned. And one little piggy left the Trump rally going wee, wee, wee all the way home. White people problems. Okay, these were jokes and poems, folks, untested from a long time ago. So hopefully we have a sense of humor for creativity and setups. Speaking of setups, shout out to Joshua Lee from Soul Cry Church for all the help you always provided me. I probably worked with you the most in the church, and you kind of remember some of the same legendary hip-hop artists I grew up with, so I'm thinking you're probably like 10 years older than me or something. A white guy from Detroit that's into rap, You're like the Eminem of Soul Cry, the Eminem of Soul Cry that's saved and speaks of salvation, I'm going to start calling you MC Skittles, And for Kyle Peacock, for letting me mention your life story in this podcast. I know people will say, oh, he's just mentioning the white people to get away with that, the remake of the Five Little Piggies joke. Yeah. First of all, it was a poem. And that's not the reason why, Sup, Daniel Schreiner? See? Daniel's a sound engineer. I may need his assistance with this. Boy, you people were tripping. Mark Still. But anyway, before I forget, also I did want to wish Richard from Soul Cry, who is one of the people that listens to these podcasts, for a speedy recovery. For I heard that he was hospitalized recently. So may you get better sooner than quicker. May you be better sooner than immediately, And know that Soul Cry is praying for you. Soul Cry. I want to thank Soul Cry. And that's Soul Cry Church every Sunday at PS 111 in Long Island City, Queens. That address is 3715 13th Street at 11 a.m. Soul Cry. So if you're there, see you if I see you this Sunday. This is your boy, Drakey. Thanks for listening. Be blessed and breezy. I'm out.